So, self-love is beautiful, but when self-care becomes self-absorption, and when boundaries become ghosting someone, then I would say we need to talk. So, 42% of millennials say that they associate self-love and self-care with doing whatever makes them happy, even if it's at the expense of others around them. I want to talk about this whole self-love trend because a lot of people are using this idea of self-love for a mask of selfish intentions. And you might have even noticed it yourself when someone's like, oh, I love myself. I need to start loving myself. But you're secretly thinking that's not self-love. You're just being a little selfish. We've all seen those social media posts and those videos about self-care this, self-care that. Did you know that the self-care industry is now worth over $13 billion? And that is mostly from social media marketing. This will put $13 billion into perspective. With $13 billion, you can buy 65 million weighted blankets, 25 million massage guns, and 13 billion lavender-scented candles, basically enough to soothe the entire planet. If you spent $1 every single second, $1, it would take you over 412 years to spend $13 billion. That is the combined net worth of Oprah, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, and you'll still have enough left over to buy a small country. Here's another fun fact for you. So, Google searches for self-love quotes have increased over 500% in just the last 5 years. Something is going on. There is an epidemic of all of these self-love ideas and messages that everybody's hearing around. And quite frankly, it's something that has become just absolutely ubiquitous. Now, what this all comes down to is individualism over empathy. That's when self-love becomes toxic. And over 60% of Gen Zers follow at least one wellness influencer. An overuse of self-love content may lead to an increase in narcissistic traits and tendencies. And this one is really sad. Over 50% of surveyed therapists say that clients confuse self-care with cutting people off rather than emotional growth. There are numerous studies and findings that show that the idea of self-care and the idea of putting oneself first reduces one's level of empathy for those around him or her. And I think it's a question that we need to start asking ourselves. Has this whole self-love trend become overblown? Are we really just trying to put lipstick on a pig? Because if that's the case, and we are saying we're loving ourselves, we're putting ourselves first, even when it hurts others, or when you're basically neglecting the people that you care about, or neglecting complete strangers, then one must ask, is it really self-love, or is it self-indulgence? I work as a life coach, and I'm in school to be a therapist, and there have been times where I've come across clients who are saying, oh, I need to love myself. I need to start loving myself and putting myself first. And there are certain instances where it is sincere, because I've had clients who have been really much people pleasers. They've been the types to sacrifice themselves. They engage in martyrdom. And if you don't know what martyrdom is, it's just like, sacrificing yourself for everyone else around you and, constantly never looking out for yourself. Those types of people need to embrace self-love. They're on the other end of the scale. They're on the opposite end of narcissism. But there are certain people who are just trying to make being selfish sound good by saying they're going to embrace self-love, because what it really is that they're not going to come out, and some people lie to themselves. I think that there's a lot of people out there who really believe that they are embracing self-love and that it's the right thing to do. Like they're not even aware, at least on a conscious level, that they're being self-centered. There are some people who subconsciously know better, but sometimes we can know something deep down, but on the surface we just are in denial. And I think that that is very dangerous, because that's how relationships get ruined. That's how you make decisions that end up hurting yourself in the long run. And I think that this whole self-love trend has gotten very much out of hand. And I think we all need to start asking ourselves, why is it that we confuse individualism over empathy? And don't get me wrong, we should all absolutely 100% love ourselves. But true self-love is being conscientious. True self-love is making sure that you are staying on top of your goals. True self-love is taking care of your health. True self-love is respecting others and being considerate of others. Because if you don't respect others, how are you going to respect yourself? And if you don't respect yourself, how are you going to respect others? But it goes both ways. It's intertwined. And, self-love is making sure that you are being the best version of yourself you could possibly be, but accepting yourself and understanding that you're human. But this whole idea of self-love has been confused with self-indulgence, and that's a problem. So I'm curious what you think. Have you noticed that this whole self-love culture trend has exploded in popularity? I mean, I sure have. And do you agree with it? I mean, or do you feel that, no, I should put myself first above everyone else, and that's how it should be, and no one's changing my mind? Listen, I am open to everyone's perspective. And I just want to know, what do you think about it?